Hello, everyone. Dr. Eames here. What I'd like to talk about this time is one of the behavior theories of leadership, Blake and Mouton's managerial grid. Um, I've also seen that this is called the leadership grid in a lot of textbooks, and if you do Google images, you'll get about equal versions with either label. So that tells you something interesting that many people don't really make too much of a distinction between management and leadership, which of course we've talked about before, and there is a distinction. But this is a good way to understand a perspective of being a manager or being a leader, depending on how you want to view it, of behavior and the different sorts of concerns you get when you balance what it is you want to do, your task concern, the job at hand, versus your concern for the people involved. And so by balancing these two concerns, you can make a nice convenient grid like you see here, and you can really learn something about it to see where do I fit in or where does my boss fit in? Or if you're just looking at an organization in general, what type of place is that to work? You can see, might as well start right here in the middle, that a middle of the road manager. They're sort of medium on people, concern for people, and concern for tasks. On this end, it's a continuum from low task concern to high, and over here, low concern for people and high concern for people. So we're going to be low across here and here, and we're going to be high across here, but also over here. So let's just see how it works. The country club manager, for instance. The country club manager is just, I think you kind of get the idea just from uh, the word itself. Um, you really look at it like this is about pleasing the people that you're around, the people that you're working with, and so forth. Um, and that is a different way to sort of do things. It's high on relationships when you really think of it that way, but it's low on concern for getting the job done. So it might be low on production. If you have something up here, this is your general sense of how the organization is doing, and this is coming from your top manager. Well, you are friendly with everybody, and everybody seems to be a surface sort of superficial happiness and friendliness going on, but you're not getting the job done, so you may not be very successful. You may not be very competitive. Um, but look where you're at on the grid. You're low on task concern, but you're high over here in people concern. So you could take it too far in one or the other directions. And certainly, let's just drop down here and take it the impoverished manager. These people, these managers, leaders have low concern for people. They don't really care much about the person. And in fact, they're pretty terrible managers in the sense that they also don't care too much about the job at hand. Um, that means they don't care if you meet your deadlines necessarily, other than to keep their jobs. So they're not going to push production necessarily. Um, these people are generally, you'd have to say that they're boring, that they're uninspiring to have to work with and around and so forth, and they're not really good fits for most organizations. So you don't want to be over here where you're low in people concern and task concern. That just says something about you. Now let's just jump back up here across to the team manager. You can see once again, we're high in concern for people. And we're also high in concern for getting the job done in the task side. So the team management is probably an ideal sort of organization to work for in this sense, that people are getting along, that they respect each other, that there's some human equality going on, and you're getting the job done. That means if you're getting the job done, you're on your way to being very successful, and maybe this is the organization that wins the competition. In the nonprofit sector, we know that there's plenty of competition to go around. So a team manager with those sorts of skills that it takes, high concern for people, high concern to getting things done, if you can make that work, it does mean that the board is going to love you as a CEO or top leader and so forth. But the exact opposite happens down here, where you're very high in task concern and that everything is about the job, getting it done, um, and so forth, maintaining all your deadlines and so forth. Um, this sort of thing, the authority, obedience, it does get work done. On the other hand, it has very little concern for people and building relationships. These really are authoritarian sorts of organizations. And you may not want to be part of one of those sorts of things. You don't treat people well. This is the worst sort of management style, and so forth. If you remember back to Likhart's management styles, where you have a continuum of systems from 1 to 4, on the far left is authoritarian, and so forth, and on the far right is participative. Well, this is the authoritarian management style, leadership style, and often you're going to work in terms of intimidation and coercion and things. So, but you don't want to be over here where you're so impoverished with skills that you don't care about people or tasks, and so forth. So, I think many managers, sort of for many reasons, uh, you can't change the system you're in. You do the best you can. They sort of end up somewhere in the middle. They do care about people. They don't really, but you can see because the middle of the road manager does cut across and touch on all of these types. So this person is someone who has found a way to survive and make it work in a ambiguous or very complex environment. That's one way to look at it, where dynamics are everything. And it's a very tough job. So you may really feel like this is where you would love to be and like to be, and you act that way. It tends to have an influence on people. You avoid the behaviors over here where you're just superficial, and you avoid the behaviors over here where you're totally authoritarian. And you show that you're not impoverished in your skills. So you can be a middle of the road manager and survive and do quite well, and gravitate towards the things that are going to make you successful and also have people like you. So again, it's just a perspective to look at leadership, and it's a managerial behavior one. Okay, folks, that's all I want to talk about this time. I'll talk to you again soon.